Alright, welcome everybody to this masterclass on how to use cover in Marvel Rivals. I think it's one of the most important topics in any FPS game, really. If you're able to use cover effectively, what it allows you to do is, first of all, is just making sure you stay alive. That is the most basic one. But another one is actually cover can allow you to get kills on the enemy. So if you're using cover effectively, if you utilizing some sort of good spot on the map, that is something what we talked about in our previous masterclasses as well. You're just able to do quite a lot of damage. You're able to apply pressure on the enemy effectively. And that is what I'm going to talk about a lot, because I think just being proactive, making sure you force out the enemy to do something, bait them, maybe to use their ultimates or bait them to use their cooldowns, I think it's one of the most important things. So that is something what we're going to talk about a lot. Okay, let me just adjust the in-game audio and we can look at this presentation. I think we can start with the first slide definition. What cover, or I like to say corner. Corner is just some sort of structure which allows you to stay protected, yeah? And in any FPS game, corner or cover, it's any vertical or horizontal structure or combination of those. So to show that real quick, if you look at this training range in here, we have this horizontal structure right in front of us. This what allows you to be protected. Okay, if we have that as a piece of cover near us, yeah, maybe using some sort of high gun, that's really nice, giving you opportunities to just stay alive. But meantime, you can also apply the pressure on the enemy. And there are also horizontal, vertical structures, just like this one, maybe this pillar over here. This is something what allows you to stay protected too, just as an example. Okay, and there are two things, well, maybe even three, the specifics about how cover can be looking like is, first of all, cover can be destructible. As you know, there is quite a lot of destructible environment in this game. You can easily break some sort of walls to access good spots. You can also try to take an extra angle of attack sometimes and just try to get around certain areas, especially chokes. Okay, that is something I really want to emphasize. If you have the opportunity to break the cover, for example, like this one here, you can see on this screenshot, we got this. Let's just maybe zoom in a little bit. Okay, so we got this blue area. That is something what we can destroy. This is Shin Shibuya. A lot of people getting stuck in this choke over here. Yeah, they're just not able to break through. Okay, and there's potential route you can create by just destroying the cover. You're just going through this blue circle and then accessing towards this red high ground. That is something what we talked about in our power positions masterclasses or angles masterclass. I'll talked about that as well, because you are able to destroy certain cover, you can access good position. For example, here, I'm able to establish the pressure on the point quite easily. You can take multiple angles of attack, and maybe this yellow, you also have pretty decent opportunity to just control the point. But yeah, there is the thing number one, kind of the specific about the destructible cover, usually able to access good positions. And another thing about destructible cover is typically, if you notice there is something what's destructible that might be important location on the map. That is how I would phrase it. For example, here, I was saying that this high ground is quite oppressive. Okay, if you just want to control this objective here, if you have control over this high ground, I think you have a lot of opportunities what you can do. But this high ground can also be destroyed, right? And you'll notice important locations on the map is just usually some sort of section in the middle of the map is typically destroyed, or some sort of important wall is usually can be destroyed as well, if it gives you access to some extra advantage. Yeah, positional advantage mostly. So that is something what you want to pay attention to. And now there's also other type of covers, such as non-destructible, some sort of wall where you can pretty sure, you're gonna stay safe. Like in this example here in the screenshot, you could see this yellow overall. That is something we cannot destroy, right? You can just try to stay there safely, and meantime, just stay protected and have good vision if you want to. And there's also another type of cover, such as artificial cover. That is something what made by characters. That is how I call it. For example, there's might be Doctor Strange shield, or might be Magneto shield, or just any other. For example, Emma Frost just got released, yeah, and she got a shield as well. That is something what you can place and just stay protected for a short period of time. Okay, I really want to emphasize you guys using, first of all, destructible and non-destructible cover. That is what we're gonna talk about a lot. And if you're gonna have any questions about all of that, then feel free to ask those. But yeah, so far, this first slide, does all of it make sense? What cover means? How it just looks like? It doesn't make sense to you? I think it's pretty straightforward. But yeah, anything you guys want to ask? That's okay. If there's no question, we'll move forward. I just a reminder, you guys can always open the chat and ask your questions there. Maybe if there is something you're interested in, maybe you want me to elaborate on something, let me know. But all the examples, you can access it in this presentation. You can also rewatch the lesson later if you want to. But yeah, let's just move to the next slide. And we got well, let's just call it the strategies. Yeah, we're gonna have multiple strategies on how to use cover so it allows you to get kills and survive at the same time. Okay, and talking about survivability, first off, cover allows you to minimize your hitbox. It allows you to just stay safe. And a lot of times people have problems with doing exactly that. Okay, they're not minimizing their hitbox correctly, they're overexposing it, and they're playing really far away from cover. That's what's called wide peeking. You maybe heard that in the other FPS games as well. It's just if you play really far away from cover, then it's easier for the enemy to get kills on you because you give them multiple opportunities to just shoot you. And to give you an example, let's say I'm on this training range, for instance, okay? The example of me wide peeking would be, let's say I want to peek this Lunar Snow. A lot of times, players would just do that. Let's say I want to use this cover over here. This is going to be your vertical structure you can use as a piece of cover. If I want to aim towards this Lunar Snow, a lot of people would peek maybe like this. Yeah, it's just staying really far away from cover. And now I'm giving this Lunar Snow multiple opportunities to hit me, which is not ideal. I always want to minimize the amount of hits I get. Yeah, so that is the problem, number one. And the problem number two is, well, just overexposing hitbox. Well, it's kind of similar. It's kind of similar to what I mentioned over here. Yeah, if I'm just wide peeking, I'm overexposing, but also other ways for you to overexpose your hitbox. Maybe even if I'm playing on this, or let's say I'm using this horizontal structure as my piece of cover. If I'm playing this way, I'm also pretty overexposed. If this Lunar Snow will decide to shoot me, because she can see my entire body. What I want to be happening is I want to minimize the hitbox as much as possible. I want to make sure it's harder for them to hit me. And that is why we move to solutions. What you actually need to do is try to use those vertical and horizontal structures effectively. You want to try to minimize space between you and the cover you're using. Okay, so how it looks like. As you could see here, there's a lot of space between this Luna and me. You see this entire space, those are opportunities for this Luna to hit me. And I want to remove those opportunities. So how do I do that is, well, I can just try to move back a little bit. I can try to place myself really far back. At the same time, I'm able to hit them too. Okay, try to obviously limit that, see what works, what not, because you also have this third view, so sometimes you might feel a little bit weird with the aiming part, but yeah, you want to minimize your hitbox this way. You see, if you're this Lunar Snow, what you will see is this Halos head only. Yeah, they are not able, will not be able to see your entire body, which is ideal. And as you know, the hat's hitbox is smaller. The hat's hitbox is harder to hit as well, so you giving them last chances to do something. Okay, this is one type of cover. I'm using horizontal, but I can also use vertical. I can try to, let's say I want to apply Prussian Lunar Snow. I can pick out and shoot, pick out and shoot. Yeah, while using this vertical structure as an example. And obviously, you can also use combination of the structures because your movement is not always linear. Yeah, if I'm using something like this vertical structure, then I will typically move like this: left, right, left, right. So I will be, let's say, the moment you want to play safe, you move back to cover. The moment you play aggressively, you want to move away from the cover and you just want to peek out. All right. And there's one type of movement you can do, and another type of movement is where I move forward and backwards, depending on if I want to stay safe or if I want to stay more aggressive. If I want to stay more aggressive, I'm moving forward, just like that, and if I want to stay safe, then I'm moving back a little bit. And you will notice a lot of times you want to use combination. Yeah, if I want to just combine with all of that movement, forward and right to the left or left to the right, depending on what cover you're using, typically you'll notice you kind of do a little bit of diagonal movement. Yeah, if there's going to be graph, if you're using two structures at the same time, you're kind of moving a little bit to the left, but also a little bit backwards and forward. This is typically what happens. So if I want to shoot this Lunar Snow, I'm not doing that perfectly, but you see, it's kind of looks like, might look like diagonal movements sometimes. Okay, so let me just readjust. Okay, I think my mouse is working now. Okay, so basically, it's gonna be a lot of peek shooting, depending on what cover you're using, you're gonna peek out and shoot, yeah? And just like that, you can try to minimize the hitbox and apply pressure at the same time. Let me read the questions. Let's see, I think there's a first question. Is there any advantage to peeking from the left to right of vertical cover? Well, there is, because you playing this third view game, okay? The thing is, I just want you to notice what's happening with the aiming a little bit. So if I have the crosshair placed here, I'm not hitting the shots. But if I place the cross over here, suddenly I hit stuff. Why it works this way? Because you see how your camera is located. Yeah, you have this character slided to the left, yes? So what you're doing with aiming a lot of times is, if you can, try to place the crosshair towards the right a little bit. And it might seem like that because of this thing, you have a little bit of advantage with using this left cover, like just peeking from the left to the right, but honestly, it's just more of a visual advantage to me, because still realistically, if you know how aiming part works, yeah, I can still peek out and shoot from the right cover. Yeah, I'm still not gonna be as exposed. It's gonna be the similar, overall similar. I don't know exact numbers, but overall it should be around the same. It shouldn't, let's say, because of this number advantage, even though it would be some, you shouldn't be preferring the left cover over the right side, or like right cover over the left cover, because all of that is situational. Positioning is really situational depending on how you're controlling the map. I usually suggest just look at the areas where you're fighting, understand what kind of angles you can take. For example, as Hala, I can look to take off angles a lot of times, you get some mobility, so just notice what the map allows you to do and then peek. There's kind of an extra advantage with the left cover is because you got more vision, right? You're able to scout easily, so that is something what I want to say. Maybe if there's a preference, well, peek the left one if this is possible, but the right is also okay. You shouldn't force yourself in unfavorable spots just because you're trying to peek the left cover. That's what I want to say. Hope that makes sense. Yeah, do you guys have any questions so far, by the way, about anything, or everything is clear so far? You guys can also unmute. If there's a question, just let me know. If there is anything you want to ask. Ace of Spades is typing. Okay, I'll read your question. But yeah, if you want to unmute, that's okay too. Does cover on the right not expose more of your hitbox? Yeah, exactly. So it might seem like it does. Okay, but it shouldn't. Yeah, I just say if I aim this way, okay, like you see the way it works is my crosshair is really close to this wall, and it's kind of the location of your hitbox is gonna be similar. I'm just notice the difference. Okay, like it might seem why the left cover might feel like that you're not exposing yourself as much is because of this thing. You see, like if I'm aiming, I'm not hitting. But this is the problem because I want to be hitting. Yes, you get more information if you're using the left cover, but it's not like if you're trying to shoot, you're gonna be less exposed. Yeah. So see, like if I want to shoot, I want to pick out more. And this is a similar. There's a similar sightline, and it might seem like you're not as exposed, but in reality, it's not true. You see, because I'm sided to the left, I'm not hitting the enemy. Yeah, but here, I still can do that. You see, like as soon as I see them, I'm able to hit them. Okay, and that's how it works. It's not the hitbox. It's just rather your ability to hit. What is important too. Yeah, you want to balance the safety between hitting as well. So that's really important. Hope that makes sense. Okay, let's move to the next part, and here yeah, it does. Nice. Okay, glad to hear that. And now let's just move to some of the examples, because I mentioned it's so important to minimize your hitbox. I prepared you some examples of the Psylocke game. I think I showed some of the good examples in my previous masterclasses. I was using Sparker. Sparker is really good Psylocke, and you can notice they're using cover quite well. It just doesn't matter what kind of cover, horizontal or vertical, they do all of that pretty good. And as Psylocke especially, you have kind of a delay between shots too, so you gotta keep in mind what you're doing exactly with the shots. So see, like I can kind of shoot, but then there's a downtime between the second shot, so I can use that and try to kind of go back to cover. Okay, and I want you to show how the Sparker is doing that exactly. Okay, just give me one moment. Okay, I think we should be good. Alright, so you can see them starting moving from their spawn. They just start taking the map control. The rest of their team is gonna be to the main side. They're trying to take some sort of off angle. They try to go somewhere to the side and then apply pressure towards the enemy. And you see them moving all the way left and then starting shooting. But then how are they starting to move away? Yeah, they're using this vertical structure over here and just position defensively if they're reloading or if they need extra safety between the shots. And that's what you will see a lot of times them doing. They will not just only peek aggressively, yet they will constantly try to remain safe between the shots, in the moments of downtime, let's say that, okay? And so you can see even there, see how they're doing that all the time. They're minimizing the hitbox, using the vertical, horizontal structure, going a little bit to shoot the Magneto, then back, shooting the Magneto, and then back. Yeah, there are also chances for them to use vertical, horizontal cover as well. And once it's possible, they can take it. I think they're taking out the Psylocke, but yeah, now they got extra advantage, so they don't have to stay in the angle anymore. But it's just constant idea of you using cover. You trying to, if possible, of course, if possible, and you don't have an extra advantage, then you're using cover, typically. Because you could see a lot of times that might be okay to maybe white peek a little bit more if you have a good advantage, if there's a big advantage on the map. But if not, you typically trying to just try to use the cover as much as possible. Okay. We'll go back to this example, but so far is this. It's examples of just using some sort of vertical cover. Well, horizontal, it's kind of similar. Again, the example of Sparker. Okay, just give me 1 second. There are few videos loading in the background. Okay, now this is just them taking another duel, and they're gonna take it with Hela. Okay, so what we can do to not expose our hitbox? Well, I can use this horizontal cover over here, and I use the cover so my head is only exposed. Yeah, you only have your head exposed ideally, and the rest of your body is kind of hidden. Of course, it's kind of the rule, ideal rule. Yeah, you only want to have your head, and definitely in the game there is a lot of pressure, there are a lot of abilities being used, but this is important. And it's just how you're using cover to your advantage, how you're peeking, and sometimes you might even do the jump peek. It's just if you have a high burst on the character, if you have this cover, you could see them doing that briefly here. They're trying to peek out this angle and jump. Okay, but because there's a combination, there's also stairs on the enemy side. They also want to be hitting enemies, but they're trying to remain as less exposed as possible. Okay, usually if you're not using the just let's just say you're not looking for the high burst in the moment, yeah, just in 1 second, usually you don't want to jump as much. But if you realize it gives you an extra advantage for a second, if you're not getting consistent pressure, I think it's a right thing to do, as they did that there. Okay, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Let's just move to the next example. I think there's actually even another one we can watch. Let me see. Maybe it's the same one. Let's just check. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we already watched that. Let's just move to the next slide then. Do you guys have any questions so far? Is everything clear for you? Let me just open up the chat. No questions. Okay.
At least for me.
Yeah. It's all right. Okay then. Let's be moving. Okay, give me 1 second. We'll remove this. I just have to find a presentation. There's so many things open for me now. Okay, just do it this way, and then remove this, and here we go. Okay, it's right there. Okay, so now the second thing is what you can be doing. We talked about the safety a lot, but you can also be maximizing the hitbox of the enemy. This might be a little bit of a tricky part, but you can do that as well. In any FPS game, you can just place yourself in a spot where it's easier for you to hit multiple enemies. An example of this can be just this example over here. I want you guys to see, okay? This example, this is a usual location where you're taking the fight on the map is called Yggdrasil Pass, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is one of the locations where you usually take the fight. The cart is moving over here, okay? And a lot of times you notice that might be positioned on the top high ground. And I just use this example of the Widow, the position over here, and trying to shoot this main side, maybe, okay? But now, if you're trying to choose the location like this, you could possibly maximize the enemy hitbox a little bit. Imagine if there's an enemy just right in front of me. There's someone over here, okay? What they're gonna be doing is they will try to move away from my crosshair and try to go behind the cover, typically. Okay, so what you can be doing is, while you're using your own cover, so what kind of cover I'm using here is this horizontal right now. And while I'm using this cover, I can force myself, just position myself in a position where I have the enemy more exposed. Okay, and an example of that can be, I just want you to compare two of those examples. This here. Okay, so suddenly, just notice the difference between the positions. This is me slightly more to the right. I hope that is clear enough. Just see the difference. There is still the main pathway over here, but on the second screenshot, I actually moved slightly more to the left, so I'm able to see what's behind the corner. And see suddenly, if this is the guy playing near cover, if they want to hide from me, because I position just like I do here, I open myself multiple opportunities to hit them. Well, maybe not as many, but if there's maybe just one extra shot you can do on the enemy, that is still better compared to the example like here. Okay, if I position this way and the enemy is really close to cover already, I'm giving them option to easily hide. That's not ideal. Okay, and obviously, while we're trying to shoot the enemy, you still want to use some sort of cover by yourself too. You want to maybe use this horizontal cover. There also might be vertical cover, like we mentioned already. Stuff like that. So constantly applying pressure and meanwhile staying safe. Okay, so this is really important part. I hope that makes sense. I might give you more examples as well. There are gonna be more examples from some of my students' gameplay. I've been coaching a lot of Hala recently, and we actually the last session we went over the cover with them, how they can use it effectively, and that is something what I will show you there as well. Is just minimize your hitbox, maximize the enemy at the same time, if possible. Of course, you don't wanna find yourself in a position where you're too far away, where you're too deep, so you get punished though. Yeah, look at your kit, look at what it allows you to do. If you have more mobility, if you have more escape options, then you can take those deeper angles and kind of open up the opportunities. So instead of playing here, I can play here. Yeah, as a Widow, you got some sort of mobility. Well, I don't want to play too far away from my team, but kind of take softer angles, and if there's someone who's gonna dive me, I can easily escape. Again, I'm using this as only one example for this map, but you can apply this to pretty much anywhere. All the examples I'm sharing with you, you guys can be applying those to any of the situations. There's nothing like niche or nuanced, so pretty much all the general stuff. Okay. Let's be moving. Does this idea make sense? Maximizing the enemy hitbox. Or any questions? If there are no questions, we can move to the next slide. So this is also kind of to just go over quickly. I think I mentioned that already, but everything is in the slides too. What are the problems again? Is you cannot do continuous damage, and enemy is going to be really close to cover by themselves. So and what I want to try to do is give myself a solution. Yeah, try to just make sure the enemy, it takes more time for them to reach the cover. That's what we'll try to do continuous damage. Okay. The last thing I would like to mention about all of this is you guys need to be trying to anticipate enemy position, think what they might be doing on the map, and try to position your crosshair correctly. Yeah, try to just take positions accordingly. Let's say I expect Spider-Man to be in some sort of spot. Yeah, well, I can just pre-shoot them. I can just try to position my crosshair accordingly, or there might be someone else, like Black Panther, you can also shoot them before. You anticipate enemy position, and this way you can position yourself so you expose them more. Yeah, like let's say I want to shoot the Spider-Man so they will not dive me. Okay, and then make sure you position in the areas where you see them early, once they're getting out from spawn, once they're kind of getting closer. Yeah, you want to prevent the dive by just shooting the divers before they dive you, as an example. Yeah, that's why it's important. Okay, now another thing a lot of times people do in their games when they're using cover is they are exposing way too much against multiple angles. Okay, and I will show you this example here. I'm just gonna make it bigger. All right, here we go. This is the screenshot of one of my students' games. They play Hala. They are right there. It's highlighted yellow. They're playing Hala over here. And now what they've been trying to do is peek out by going forward. Yeah, why they're trying to do that is because they have an attempt to shoot somebody at the position C. Okay, but if they're doing that, they're exposing themselves to the pressure from B and pressure from A, which is not ideal, because if there's too much pressure on you, then you're just gonna be forced to use your resources early, and you will have to move away from your position. That is something what you don't want to do, and the solution to that is try to deal with one angle at a time. Okay, so instead of me dealing with multiple angles, if possible, I want to choose to deal with one angle at a time. So how it looks like is exactly just like that. If they playing at the highlighted position here, instead of exposing themselves to the A, C, and B, at the same time, there's also position D, which they could be exposing to. They could just be moving to this blue circle. Okay, if they're this blue circle, what they will be doing is they're using this vertical structure as their cover and horizontal structure over here. Okay, and depending on what they want to shoot, they can maneuver themselves between the cover. Yeah, if I want to shoot something like C, well, I can just move more back and play over here. Obviously, there might be pressure coming from the other angles, but we just trying to find the solution where we have as less angles as possible. Ideally, we want to have one angle at a time, because that is the only angle you're shooting. So it doesn't make sense for you to be exposed to too many things at a time. Okay, let's say I just want to shoot D. Well, what I would be doing from this blue circle, I could just try to stay somewhere over here. I'm using this vertical cover, not exposing myself to B or C. At the same time, kind of maybe moving slightly closer to this edge, so the A is not able to pressure me. And meantime, I'm using horizontal structure just like this one, so I'm not exposed to D as much, yeah? And you could see that in the practice range, yeah? What we've been doing so far, let's just get in practice range again. Just show that right at the start, using combination of the cover. Okay, let's just go hella here. Okay, so for example, right now, let's say I want to shoot this bot. Yeah, a lot of people would just do it this way, where they position just like that. I'm too exposed. This is not ideal. What I can do, I can move away and minimize the space between cover and the enemy. See, all that space, you can remove it. And meantime, they're only able to see the head. Okay, obviously there's only one piece of cover, horizontal, but there's also vertical cover, just like that one. Try this out, see how it works, and it's gonna give you value. You're gonna be able to hit the enemy while staying safe. Okay, let's put it this way. Alright, any questions about all of that so far? Or everything's clear? Just minimizing angles, I think, should be pretty straightforward, but yeah, if there are any questions, let me know. By the way, a lot of this connected to previous sessions we've done. Power positions, angles masterclass might seem like a simple thing, but a lot of people don't use the cover correctly, I would say. So that is something you guys can be mindful about. No questions, fine. We're moving to the next slide then. Okay. Oh, just an important note. If you're not able to deal with more than one threat, yeah, let's say there are multiple threats which are shooting you anyway, because in Marvel Rivals, a lot of times the maps are pretty open. What you can do is just try to choose what is more killable to you. Because when I've been playing, a lot of times I notice, well, oh, there's just too many enemies. Well, sure, what I do? Well, I just try to shoot something what's more killable. You choose what's more killable now and shoot that, and it's gonna be alright. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Now, what cover allows you to do, obviously, is scouting. Scouting is another big thing, and usually you prefer using the left walls to scout, but if it's not possible, it's still possible for you to scout from the right wall. You just keep in mind with how you maneuver your camera. A lot of people don't do that, but it's important, especially if you play high burst characters. Let's say I'm playing something like Widow. A lot of times in my sessions, what I see is people play just like that. They peek out, staying out in the open, and now if you're this Luna Snow, you're able to see the Widow, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna move away. Yeah, but as we mentioned before, you want to maximize enemy hitbox. So charge a shot behind the wall, typically, yeah? And you can try to scout as well. You can try to scout and see, maybe there's somebody, just spend half a second, and then charge the shot, and then peek out. Okay, I think, I didn't do it correctly, but yeah. Anyway, you get the idea. It's just, if you're doing all this mechanics, yeah, you're trying to scout first, and then peek out and shoot. Then it gives you more chances to hit good shots, because the enemy is not going to be scared of you, and you also know exactly what they're doing, yeah? It's not like you're going to be surprised suddenly with their movement, with their abilities, stuff like that. It's just one of the things we gonna talk about later as well. So what are we trying to get? What kind of information people a lot of times not getting? They're not getting information on positioning, cooldowns, ultimates, stuff like that. Yeah, and we're exactly gonna be using third view a lot of times to be able to scout. Now, important note: what you can scout typically. I think usually it's really important to scout some sort of thing which, first of all, can kill you. Yeah, let's just say maybe there's high burst character. You want to be mindful about them. Yeah, you not want to peek out right away, but also the cooldowns. Maybe some sort of CC like Luna Snow Freeze. That is something you can just take a look and see. Well, okay, maybe just scouting, seeing what are they doing. Yeah, maybe they're currently casting something like maybe even their shift, they casting it, and they just have some sort of sustain. That is something what you can think about, because any casting ability in the moment, it gives an enemy an extra advantage right now, and usually you don't want to be fighting when they have an extra advantage. Okay, it's not like you cannot hit them, maybe they're using an ability, but just think about it like the scale. Okay, you have the one side, you have the scale where you play defense, and on another side you have the attack. Okay, if they're using something, you typically lean towards the defense. It's not like you cannot hit the enemy, you're still hitting them, but you're leaning towards the defense, and that means you're leaning towards the cover, typically. And if they are more vulnerable, maybe they use their defensive, maybe they use their mobility as well, you can try to play towards more attack option. Yeah, you can just try to peek out a little bit more and shoot them. That is what you can do quite a lot. Okay. Yeah, I think I already mentioned that you want to prepare your engagement. And like in the case of Widow, I can prepare my engagement charging the shot behind the wall, but it's also the same thing about the characters with a high burst, like melee characters, even Black Panther. You want to be hitting your combos, so Spider-Man, you also want to be able to hit your combos too. You don't want to get noticed. Use the cover, use the third view to scout, and then you can attack. After that, just spend extra time. And maybe for anyone who is new to the game, some of you guys, you just start climbing, you just start your journey from low ranks, I suggest start as slow and good first, and then later you can build up the speed. You don't have to be fast like Necros or something, or just be like that pro player try to mimic their gameplay, like press the buttons really fast. It's not gonna do you any good. You need to start as slow and good first, and then you build up the speed later. Okay, so all the scouting, all the pressing abilities, if it's not as fast now, it's okay. Take your time, and then it's gonna get faster later. All right, and well, obviously characters with displacement, that is something what can take advantage of the corners too. For example, if I play Thor a lot of times, I don't want to charge my hammer behind well, just right in front of the enemy, because they will see that and they'll react, they'll try to freeze me. Maybe, obviously, you still can be frozen. Let's say I charge the hammer behind the wall, I still can get frozen, right? But there's less opportunities for the enemy team to react, and more opportunities for you to have full health and your shields as well, so you can actually use those to brawl the enemy. Yeah, any characters with displacement ability is also, they're reliant on cover. I can try to scout, I can try to just see what's going on first, and then try to attack, okay? Alright. And, well, the last thing is about CC, and it's just, you might notice the characters with the CC, they typically have that casting time. For example, this guy, they have their CC ability, their hook is the casting. And a lot of players, they would charge it out in the open. This is not ideal. Okay, if I'm charging it out and open, I'm again giving the enemy the chance to just notice that and try to dodge that. Ideally, I just want to start my animation behind the corner. Yeah, so it's unnoticeable, and then peek out in the critical moment when they cannot see me. Yeah, maybe they're distracted with something, and then you hit your combos, all of that, obviously. But most important, get information. Maybe give you another example for support characters. Even Luna Snow, guys. You can start to cast animation behind the wall. Okay, you don't have to just be playing out in the open a lot of times. You can start to cast animation, peek out, and then the enemies have less chances to react. Because with how the high rank players react as well. A lot of people think, oh, well, the high rank players, they have such a good reaction. In reality, it's not true. It's more about decisions. It's more about them being able to anticipate certain things. So first off, they will try to just anticipate the Luna Snow Freeze. Maybe there are also some other cooldowns like her shift. That is something they want to be keeping an eye on. But it's also them watching animations. It's not them reacting to bullets. It's watching animations. So if you have your animations hidden and then you pick out, okay, I didn't do it effectively now, but yeah, anyway, you can start behind the wall. Let me just demonstrate one more time. Okay. We're gonna start behind the wall and start animation and then pick out. Yeah. I'm not exposing my full and cast animation because some partially I've been hidden behind the wall. And that is good. Yeah, you can even hide sometimes. Just hide your full body. I think you're able to. Yeah, let's say I'm Luna Snow. I'm able to hide my full body and then peek out. That's okay. Okay, let's move forward. Yeah, do you guys have any questions about scouting, or is it clear enough? Right, I see there are no questions yet, so we can move forward, and there is something, the next slide, something we discussed before is good cover may allow you to use good positions, kind of power positions. I done the masterclass on that already, so you guys can rewatch it. But overall, think about this common problem a lot of players don't do. They just choose in the corner, which limits their options to do overall pressure. Okay, and this is the same map we used with you before. I just zoom in. This is typical objective. This is typical point people trying to control. And let's say you're on defense. A lot of people would just try to stack point a lot of times, especially the low ranks. People just keep stacking on point. This is not good at any point of time. Also, some of you guys heard that it's good that when point is moving, you have C on card. In reality, it's not true unless you are really close to capturing the objective. You don't need to have C on card, you only need one on card, and the rest people can take map control, usually, because that gives you extra advantage in the fight. Okay, and this is exactly what people don't do. They don't use the power spots. They don't take good positions on the map, and they're all stuck on point. Like this position A, this position B, yeah. But what I could be doing instead is could be doing that. Yeah, let's just move to our presentation back. Okay, so we can just try to use one of the positions. Okay, we had those marked like this yellow, for example, or this red. We can just try to position over here and have more chances to control the point effectively. We have multiple options of what to do. Set up the pressure from the left, from the right, and this is still cover. This cover allowing you to control multiple lanes on the map. Yeah, we just able to establish more effective pressure because we're doing so. Okay. Now, let's just move back to the slides. Okay. Yeah, as I mentioned, you can also check out the masterclass on power positions. I talk a lot about the benefits, what power positions allowing you to do. There are some locations on the maps you can definitely find good power positions on any of the maps, and those just giving you more options of what you can be doing. And I think especially if you play some sort of a long range or mobile character, taking power position is extremely important. You don't want to be stuck somewhere out in the middle. A lot of people just diving from point A to point B. Let me just give you an example. That is something what I had a session on as well. We talked a lot about the setup with one of the Thor players. A lot of times the engagement would look like this. They would go from point 1 to point 2. Okay, and just try to get to the back line, but because this type of engagement, it's so telegraphed, the enemy team is able to see them instantly, they able to poke them out, it makes it hard for them to hit the back line. Okay, so what you can do instead is try to just set up differently. Well, first of all, and we mentioned that right at the start, you take advantage of destructible cover. They can destroy something, get an advantage, so you get in a position, and later you can try to attack. I can try to attack the backline. I don't have to constantly go in the middle somewhere. Yeah, I'm taking advantage of those power spots too, if possible, and minimizing amount of pressure on me. Yeah, even though you're playing tank, it's not like you have to tank all the things in the world. You can always choose the most threatening angle to deal with currently, and then make sure you absorb the pressure from them, and it's gonna be alright eventually. So I don't want to be exposed to everything on the map. Yeah, I just want to be exposing to the pressure. Let's just say I want to be exposed to the pressure which my team can control with me at the moment. So let's say most of my team is able to control those guys over here. Okay, then I want to be exposed to only that angle of attack. I don't want to be exposed to anything else. It's just something that does a lot of cheap damage, ideally. So I have full resources. You want to have your resources for exact areas where the most of your team is attacking. So keep that in mind. Okay, and now the last thing is, and that might be the most interesting for a lot of people, is mechanics. Mechanics can also be solved through using cover correctly a lot of times. If you have some problems, you can pay attention to this part a little bit more. A lot of people that have the problem with placing their crosshair, sometimes they place the crosshair in the middle of the screen, and it makes it more difficult to aim and eliminate the enemy. And I will give you an example. Let's say you play Hala, and you just trying to pick out the enemy. You're trying to go from here, well, let's say like this, yeah? I'm just trying to shoot this Lunar Snow. A lot of times, they have their crosshair placed in the middle somewhere, like here, okay? And then it takes time for them to move the crosshair. See, like how much time, if I'm peeking this corner, it takes a lot of time for me to move from this point right to this point left, okay? But what it could be doing instead? Well, you can just try to place the crosshair right on the corner, and then it makes it easy for you to aim. And that is something what I'll talk about later, but yeah. And it's just another part, already mentioned that, is when you have this crosshair placed not on the right cover, you're not taking advantage of the cover, you will do a lot of unnecessary movements sometimes, yeah. Some players also do a lot of flicking, unnecessary flicking sometimes. Well, it might be like the muscle memory or something, but ideally you don't have to do a lot of movement with your mouse. You can also a lot of times just try to take advantage of your movement aim, yeah. Try to go from point A to point B, and then make sure you do a lot of the work with your movement as well. Okay, and I'm just gonna show you a few examples. Oh yeah.
Yeah, to add to like the movement thing, if you see like hella VODs from NAMRC is like when I saw it.
Oh yeah.
The FlyQuest DPS energy doesn't move their mouse at all. They play hella.
Exactly.
Most
Exactly.
of the time they're jumping into like the enemy's like aim, sorta. If that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
Yeah.
how you take an advantage of this, because you predicting. So there are a lot of layers, like I talked about already before, is because you anticipating the enemy to be somewhere, and you also you know what kind of piece of cover you're using. You're gonna be placing your crosshair right on the corner. So instead of me having the crosshair right in the middle and me making unnecessary movements, this is really bad. You guys also, if you guys played games like Overwatch, maybe some of you guys played the Widowmaker, a lot of the times players, even the high ranks, a lot of times they make unnecessary movements, like maybe even going from just somewhere from bottom to just sewing the aim up, or like from up to the bottom, or like left, right, unnecessary. Yeah, if I'm using this cover and I know, okay, this is where I'm staying safe, I can just place the crosshair right in the corner and then peek out and shoot. Yeah, so see, like I'm almost doing zero movements. Of course, you will have to do some micro readjustments though. That's really important. Aiming is not only about the just your movement with how you move. There's a lot of things you can do with movement as well. It's mirror movement, anti-mirror, that you can also try to do some sort of dodging as well. In this game it's limited because you're not able to just crouch as much, but yeah, we can talk about the movement later as well, or just mechanics overall. But anyway, because I'm placing the crosshair right in the corner, really good example is here as well. If I'm anticipating the enemy peeking out, just like that, and see, like there's an enemy right there, and allows me to aim. This is what's called peek shooting as well. You see a lot of Halas do that. They just going from right to the left, just like that. Yeah, I don't need to even, I don't even need to do a lot of stuff with my mouse. I just do it like that. Okay, let's see. So yeah, we're putting crosshair right in the corners. It's one thing. Another is make sure you put it on head level. If you have it on the head level, then it makes it so much easier for you to aim. You see it like Casual Knight mentioned with the Hala players, and also any other players with the high burst. You guys watch someone like Widow, or maybe Hawkeye, or might be even Psylocke. Yeah, all of that is really important. Well, important on any character, unless you don't have the capability to hit the critical shots, but still, it's good. What I suggest though, when you're doing all of this, because I mentioned a lot of this as a crosshair, yeah, focus on the crosshair, see what's the placement is. in reality, you don't want to focus on your cross exactly. Yes, it's giving you an idea how the shot's gonna be looking like and everything, and yeah, it gives you an extra advantage, but you want to focus on your target. First of all, 90% of the focus should be on how the target is moving, what the target is doing. It's sort of like in any other sport game. If I want to outplay the defender, and if they play football, imagine they have their ball like right there. Okay, a lot of players, a lot of novices, they would just pay attention to the ball right away. They will try to see where the ball is going and then try to hit. Yeah, then try to outplay the defender. This is not good. What you want to be doing instead is try to watch the enemy's movement, see what they do. Like in the sports, for example, they would do the movement with their hips, the legs, yeah, with how they move their body, and then they know exactly where the ball is going to be moving. And that is exactly the thing you can do, because you watch their movement, you will be aiming correctly. Yeah? If I watch the Luna doing certain pattern, let's say, to give you a pretty straightforward example, let's say I take this 90 angle, and this guy is watching here, okay? In their movement, most likely what it will look like, they will try to just strafe in straight line, okay? They're gonna be going left and right, and this is gonna be forming a line for me. And because it's forming in line, then I exactly know, well, they have this pattern now. It's so much easier for me to hit the shot. Yeah, it's so it's so easy, yeah, because they're strafing an exact line. Of course, it's ideal situation, but a lot of times you see that a lot of good Hala players, because they take an angle, they abuse that fact as well. It's more mechanical, yeah, because you have this good corners. It can take advantage of that. But even if I'm face to face with the enemy, a lot of times I don't have to hit all the time. I see that all the time happening. Players kind of hold their fire. You don't need to hold the fire. You need to just tap instead. But you do that because you are looking at the movement. You're trying to notice the pattern what they're doing at the moment. So let's say this Luna Snow is moving left to the right, left to the right. I can place the cross in the middle of their movement and then kind of tap. Yeah, tap right when they're going to be moving. Let's say I know exactly like the pattern of this bot, what it's going to be looking like. Again, I'm really bad mechanically, yeah. But let's say if ideally I'm predicting them moving to the left and then I hit. Yeah, then I think I'm bad at this, but yeah, anyway, like I'm trying to hit, predict, and ideally it just should be slightly more forward, because your aim is projectile with Hala, just slightly more forward, predicting, because I see them moving in a straight line and then shooting. Yeah, moving in straight line, then shooting. I'll just try to do it one more time. Okay, actually my mouse settings are a little bit off too, but anyway, it's kind of how you do it. A lot of times, especially with projectile characters, you have to do a lot of prediction, and with hit scan, you will place the crosshair right on target more, but you still have to do anticipation. You have to anticipate, okay, what this guy's, where this guy's going, and then I'm trying to hit them. Okay. Do you have any questions about anything? For FPS players, this is the same thing as crosshair placement. Oh yeah, you're saying about the movement, I assume, yeah? Or, yeah, what was that about? Sorry. The comment... No, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, do you guys have any questions so far?
So I do have a question.
Yeah.
If you're playing support and you're holding good positioning and you're holding good cover, and you notice your DPS or excuse me, sorry, or the tanks are kind of pulling you out of that cover because they're overextending, or their positioning is just bad in general, how do you best address that as a support player?
Yeah, good question. Because I think especially the supports, I think it's really annoying, because a lot of times you find yourself playing in the backline, you kind of have good overview of what's happening, and you can clearly see who is overextending on the field. I always say, try to help them out, sure, but most of your attention shouldn't be towards that player who is overextending. It's rather should be to the areas where most of your team is attacking. Think about it this way. Most of your resources, that's what I call the kill zone or the kill box. I think a lot of the coaches there, they also use the same terminology. So far from what I heard, there also some more simple way in explaining this, but basically what the kill zone is the position where most of your team is able to do active pressure. Active pressure is based on their cooldowns and based on their damage. Okay, so if you know that most of your team is attacking, let's say, this area, then most of your resources should be dedicated towards this area. So if you notice that you're overusing the resources on someone who is overextending, usually, I wouldn't say it's the most consistent thing. Obviously, there might be cases where this player gets away. It might be partially because of the enemy team mistakes. It might be partially because this guy has just been really good, maybe hitting all the shots or something, or maybe there's just really good mechanically, just performing something there. But anyway, most of your attention typically will be towards the kill zones. That's how I would say. The other thing is communication. Communication is something that can help you out too, but I wouldn't stress it too much. I wouldn't focus most of your efforts on communication. A lot of players do that as well, especially like average, like low ranks. They highly emphasize communication. They say it's a team game. Yes, it's true. But if you using communication and it's hindering your performance, then it's not ideal. Yeah, fix your performance first. Make sure the performance is solved, and then later you can pay attention to the other variables, which gives you extra value. And because especially high rank players, they have this tendency, they give you a lot of times it's good advice. Obviously, they tell you, okay, communication is important. Maybe there's also some other stuff like team comms is important, or like meta characters. But in reality, it's all adding you extra percentages of value. Like maybe having good comms gives you 1% of value, or like having the best meta character possible gives you 1% of value. But you could be solving those other 99%, or like, I don't know, 98 or something with your performance and still hit eternity. Yeah, so that is some most important to address first. Yeah, that is something I would say. But yeah, most of what's important is the kill zone. Kill zone is so important. Another thing I would say as well is, you as support, you have to anticipate what the team is going to be doing and what the enemy team is doing. And there are two things for you. You need to try to enable and disable. And when you're enabling and disabling, it's all about disabling or enabling activity. Okay, activity on the field. Anybody who is the most active in the current moment, I want to pay attention to them, first of all. So, for example, I know there's Iron Fist going on the angle, and nobody else is doing that right now. Okay, then I'm as Luna Snow, I will place my E on that Iron Fist, so they will try to be more aggressive. There's a lot of, I don't say too correct advice, like people saying, let's place E on the tanks, or let's play E on the flankers. All of that, it ultimately doesn't matter. There's no correct target. Yet the target, all of that depends on the context. You want to see the activity, who's going to be the most active in the moment, and then place the E. And before, you can also do some anticipations. For example, I know that most likely if there's a flanker, yes, they will be more aggressive with their positions. I'll try to place my E, for example, on them, or maybe I'll try to, I don't know, just support them with the healing a little bit more. But it doesn't mean that all the time my E is going to be on them. Yeah, it's just something to keep in mind. Understand what activity means. When they're attacking, dealing big pressure, maybe there's something like the combos. In case of Spider-Man is going for the combo. Okay, that is something I want to enable. There's maybe Black Panther is going for the combo too. Okay, I want to enable that as well. Yeah, make sure they stay alive a little bit longer. I want to enable pressure of my teammates, disable pressure of the enemy. That is the most ideal. Yeah, okay, I hope that makes sense. It's quite a lot.
Yeah, no, that made perfect sense.
Nice.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Okay. Well, what we didn't mention yet, okay, talked about the crosshair placement, movement, head level, focusing on the target, but you can also, and mention that a lot, anticipate where the enemy is going to be. I cannot stress enough, this is one of the most important things. If you guys are looking to fix your mechanics, it's just make sure you fix decisions first. Make sure you fix your positioning first. It's not possible to fix the mechanics alone without that. Yeah, that's why you have to also practice, go in the comp game and see how you are anticipating certain target. Like, let's say if I'm in this game, I'm playing Widowmaker, and I know there's a Spider-Man on the enemy team. Oh, of course, I don't want to get hit by the Spider-Man right away. Yeah, so what I will be doing is I will try to shoot them a little bit more. Yeah. I'll just maybe swap the character. Let's say there's gonna be Spider-Man. Okay, I just choose them, and I'm anticipating them to be around this corner. I'm gonna be placing the crosshair right on him. Also, not forgetting about the cover. Also trying to just minimize my exposure, maximize the enemy exposure meantime, and then I'm picking out and shooting them a little bit more. Yeah, I'm anticipating. This allows me to place the crosshair correctly. You see, like, because some players a lot of times wondering, oh, where's the Spider-Man? Then they have the cross in the middle of the screen, and then they're trying to do the crazy flick, like, I don't know, 180 or something. Well, 180 is okay. That's pretty okay for those kind of games to do. It's your muscle memory. You should be able to do that, especially on characters like Hala or maybe the characters like Salak. But yeah, a lot of times people just like try to hit the crazy shot. You don't have to. It's a lot about just see the difference. I know that this guy's gonna be over here. I don't have to do as much movement. Okay, I didn't do it correctly again, but yeah. You see the difference because you know where they are. Okay, and now another specific thing, and a lot of people, they don't mention that as well, is how you are peeking out from the cover. Okay, in any FPS game, you need to try to move in parallel to cover. If I'm using, doesn't matter what kind of structure, left or right, I don't want to be peeking out like this. You see, a lot of players, they just peek out this way. They go forward, and then they shoot the enemy. Yeah, they're trying to hit them, and then they're getting hit too. What happens if you do that? Well, the enemies just gonna be... It's so much easier for them to hit you because you're moving in a straight line. Yeah, especially if you play versus some sort of long-range character. Let's say there's a Widow, or maybe like there's an enemy Hela that trying to hit you, and you're trying to peek out this way. You're moving right towards them. Not good. Moving parallel to cover. If I'm using this, then I'm peeking out this way and shooting. Peeking out, shooting. Peeking out, shooting. Okay? Maximizing the enemy hitbox, minimizing my hitbox. Okay? And yeah, exactly. Doing peak shooting is something what allows you to stay alive and make sure there's more quality pressure as well. It's only on characters with this burst damage, with the non-continuous damage. Like, let's say Punisher, they have continuous damage. You wouldn't do a lot of peak shooting with them. You would just kind of hold the position and try to do continuous damage. But to be able to do so, also make sure you take the good position too. Yeah, you don't want to stay out in the middle somewhere. Yeah, you can always take advantage of the angles on the map. So I can, for example, I take in this and I'm able to do continuous damage. That's good enough. Okay, so I'm starting shooting the Hala and I don't have to do a lot of peak shooting this way. But yeah, also keep in mind that if you're in danger, you can always move away towards the cover and stay safe. Okay. Oh yeah, obviously the moments when you reload too. If you reload, then you're gonna be kind of moving back to cover, getting information, and then after that you can repeat again. Okay. I think for the most part, that's about it. So we mentioned 6 most important things with how to use cover. To just do a quick recap, it's been minimizing your hitbox, maximize the enemy hitbox, and minimize the angles you are facing against. You don't have to be exposed to too many angles. We can also be scouting the information when we using the cover, using good power positions, which allows us to have multiple options on the map. And finally, good corners, good cover can allow you to have better mechanics as well. If you have right crosshair placement in the right corner, you know what cover you use in the moment. You're not panicking at the time, maybe getting dived or something. Or well, especially if there's a long range pressure, then you know what kind of cover you're moving towards. It's always going to be ideal. Okay. I think for the most part, that's about it. Do you guys have any questions about the cover usage? I think I mentioned most of it. There also might be some niche things I maybe didn't mention in this so far, but yeah. Do you guys want to ask about anything? Yeah, I see there's someone typing. You can also unmute. If you want to ask the question, feel free to do that. By the way, you guys can take advantage of all the materials. I shared with you some of the Sparkle gameplay. You can watch it in your own free time. You can also try to watch my YouTube. There's also second YouTube with all the full watts I do with the students. Well, not all of them, but most of them. And if you guys gonna have any question as well, feel free to message me to take advantage of that. All right. Let's see. So if you guys don't have any questions, we're gonna end it here, and you can always tag me with anything you want to know. But oh, let me see. There's one question. Over time on domination payload can get chaotic, especially after TPing. If I don't need to hold objective, where should I be? Yeah, exactly. Well, if you are TPing, just going towards the position you chose, I think usually you want to try to play around those positions. Kind of try to get the pressure done. Make sure there's something forced. That is something what I talked about in the power positions masterclass too. I kind of talked about how you can take important positions on the map, and then it forces an enemy team to do an action. Yeah, it kind of forces them to do something. Let's say I'm playing Dover, and I want to establish pressure on the point. Okay, well, I can maybe try to just take one of those positions first, or maybe go for the yellow, and then later there's gonna be passive pressure. Yeah, you are forcing the enemy to do something, or maybe just freely shooting them. Like, let's say you're saying you TP as Doctor Strange. Okay, you typically use those positions, power positions, and generating pressure, and then the enemy will be using resources towards you. Yeah, because you have positional advantage, it's gonna be easier for you to do stuff. Yeah, I'm just let's give you an example. Let's say I'm playing somewhere like over here. Okay, and then there's enemy Thor going after me. Yeah, they invest in abilities, they may be trying to use their dash, they're trying to use their awaken. There is good investment, yeah, because it's all about the resource war. If they invest in abilities, but meantime, I'm using only positioning, yeah, I'm maybe making them destroy the cover as well, that is perfect, because eventually we have more resources we can win the resource war. Yeah, we can invest more resources, punish the enemy too. Yeah. That's what I a lot of times would say. Passive value. You're creating the good passive value with those positions. Just make sure you generate it first. You don't have to go to objective right away. Just notice what kind of positions around objective you can take. And later you can go on that, obviously. Of course, there are sometimes exceptions. If you have a big ultimate, let's say there's Lunar Snow, use an ultimate right now. Of course, I want to just push up and take space. I don't want to keep playing on the power positions anymore, because ultimates, they usually give you bigger advantage compared to the positioning. That's how I would say. Especially in this game, ultimates are more important compared to the perfect spot. So make sure you notice that too. Yeah, hope that makes sense. Does it make sense, Monk, today? That makes sense. Perfect. All right. All right. Then, if you guys don't have any more questions, I will see everyone later. There's going to be another masterclass on Monday. I do believe there should be masterclass on kill boxes, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe there's going to be another one too, but most likely on the kill boxes. I will explain what that means, how you can take advantage of that. Maybe also share some of the pro play as well, with how they're using the kill boxes, stuff like that. Yeah, thank you guys. I'm glad to be helpful, and you guys have a good day too. You have any questions, let me know. All the materials you can find in Class and Reels, and also use the presentation. You can just scroll down and revisit all the notes, take your own notes too, and apply this in your game. All of this, what I mentioned today so far, it can be applied anytime in any games, pretty much. So I hope that is helpful. Okay. All right then. Bye-bye, everyone. Good luck. I will see everyone later. Have a good day, the rest of your day.